Hi there, and a very warm welcome to our session today titled Setting Up a Transformation Program Office. During this session, we'll be sharing some of our insights and experiences in setting up a transformation program office for one of the largest fast-moving consumer goods companies in South Africa. But before we start, let me do a brief introduction to myself and my co-speaker. My name is Delian Grobler, and I work for a company called Project Portfolio Office, or PPO in short. I've close to 19 years experience in project and portfolio management across various industries. I've built and managed a variety of project management offices and provided advice to organizations in PMO strategy. For purposes of this case study, my role was to set up and manage the Transformation Program Office under the leadership and guidance of Marlene Young, who's also my co-speaker for today. Marlene is a highly skilled IT professional with extensive experience in large IT projects. She's fulfilled a variety of roles ranging from developer, business analyst, system analyst, to also IT PMO and EPMO manager. In 2018, Marlene was appointed as the program director for the organization's largest business transformation program called Program Sky. Let's take a look at our agenda for our session, which we've basically broken down into 5 key sections. To start, we will spend a bit of time on the term business transformation, what it is, as well as some of the key characteristics of transformation programs. We will then move on to provide you a bit more background on Pioneer Foods, as well as where the transformation journey started for them. And then we'll move on to the most important part of the presentation, which is the top 10 things that TPMO did right to create a highly integrated, collaborative, high-performing environment. Just to give you a bit more context on these 10 points, these points were raised by our program stakeholders out of lessons learned discussions that we had to assess the performance of the program office. Okay, so what is business transformation? Now, the reasons why transformation programs have failed is very well documented in numerous literature and surveys, and I'm sure you guys are all aware of this. But despite this, many continue to still fail to meet their objectives and deliver the expected value. Now, based on our experience and exposure to a variety of organizations, it is evident that organizations and even functions within organizations have varying views on what transformation is. For some, it's all about digital transformation, example, big data, artificial intelligence, and Internet of Things. For others, it's still about expanding their product offerings, their service offerings and channels, or making changes to their operating models, forming new partnerships, and or expanding into multinational global organizations. Whatever the perspective is, though, if the change is going to result in the need for new capabilities, significant changes in employees' behaviors, mindsets, and ways of working, it is transformational of nature. That is, it will require a complete change of culture in your organization. And once this change has been implemented, it will be business as never before. So what we have found is that transformation programs typically have all or some of the following characteristics. Now, this is by no means an exhaustive list, and I'm sure you guys will be able to add some more characteristics to this. Some of the key things we have found are dedicated resources from within the organization, from various divisions, business units, and functions. It also includes a high number of suppliers with teams that are spread over various locations and even countries, all with different backgrounds and cultures. It typically also consists of various component projects to deliver the future state, all driving a large number of deliverables, systems, and interfaces that will eventually require careful integration to make sure everything comes together. And I think most importantly, one of the key characteristics is that it has a high number of unknowns and uncertainty, especially at the start. The key point is, though, that as transformation is largely a road of discovery towards an envisioned future state, the program through which it's delivered needs to be flexible, and agile to continuously adapt to address emerging requirements, overcome obstacles, and exploit rising opportunities. And this requires very specific capabilities within your team in order to be able to cope and deliver in an unpredictable and evolving environment while still keeping the focus on the end goal. Now, before we move into the 10 points, let's first give you a bit of background information on the Pioneer Foods Group.
Thank you, Darlene. Pioneer Foods is one of the largest foods and beverages companies in South Africa and has an annual revenue of approximately 20 billion rand. Pioneer Foods' vision is to be a leading South African FMCG company with a strong African footprint on a globally recognized scale. The group operates mainly across South Africa, providing wholesale, retail, and informal trade customers with products of a consistently high standard, and is structured into 3 operating divisions: international, groceries, and essential foods. Pioneer Foods also exports to more than 60 countries across the globe. The group operates a number of world-class production facilities, producing a range of products that include some of the most recognizable and best-loved brands names in South Africa, including the following power brands: Weet-Bix, Liquifruit, Ceres, Sasco, Safari, Speco, and White Star. Pioneer Foods employs approximately 9,000 permanent employees and on average 1,700 temporary workers. The corporate head office is in Cape Town, South Africa. Over the years, the Pioneer Foods operating model went through a number of changes, from being a highly decentralized environment to a more centralized business with shared services centers and centers of excellence. Our subsystem was implemented in 1997 when the Pioneer Foods business was formed through Sasco and Bacomo merger, and over the years it became highly customized in order to support these changes. And technology also evolved beyond imagination over the years. This created a high number of operational challenges for Pioneer, which led to Pioneer making the decision to transform and simplify the existing SAP landscape to ensure better alignment to Pioneer Foods' operating model, but also to ensure improved flexibility and agility to support future growth and strategic decisions. And that is how Program Sky was born, with a very clear vision: reshape the way we work, leverage technology, value our people, realizing potential. And it was branded as Sky, our digital future. So where did our journey start? It started with the development of a value case which took approximately 3 months. Through this process, we realized that the technology would provide Pioneer Foods the opportunity for quantum leap improvements in the business, and that this would result in significant changes in the way people work. We further realized that we would need to manage this transformation carefully, not only to contain the scope, as it would quite easily become unmanageable, but also to ensure that we have realistic transition plans and a best fit change management strategy. A traditional approach would just not cut it. After obtaining board approval, we kicked off the initiation process in order to find the right implementation partner, identify the right internal resources from a business and IT perspective, and to secure senior leadership support prior to the formal kickoff of our program. So moving on to the 10 things the TPMO did right. Number 1, establish itself early to be ready for the kickoff. Many PMOs find themselves on the back foot with the startup of a transformation program, and there could be many reasons for this. It can either be that the internal PMO team does not have the capacity or capability to support the program, or there is no real understanding of the key role that the TPMO will play, and therefore little, if any, commitment or support to get it up and running with the required skills and resources as soon as possible. For me, it was important to fill the following roles to get the program started in the right way. A highly skilled and experienced TPMO lead who will design and establish the PMO. A project administrator to support the program from day one. Human resources manager who will provide resourcing support, and a project manager to manage the RFP project. You might ask why a project manager to manage the RFP process. I think we sometimes underestimate the process of selecting the right implementation partner. So the following slide provides you a high-level overview of our initiation roadmap that consisted of some of key activities that I will briefly touch on. Design, implement and mobilize a fully fledged TPMO. Also the setting up of the program facilities where the team can be based and feel that they're part of this journey. Design the detailed program governance and organizational structures. To mobilize the steering committee very early in the process, sourcing and mobilizing the right resources, and then manage the RFP project that I've already mentioned to make sure that we appoint the right implementation partner. The total duration of the initiation phase was approximately 9 months, and by the time we formally ticked off the program, the TPMO was established and ready to support the program.
Okay, moving on to point number 2. The TPMO made an effort to understand the organization and program context. In setting up the TPMO, it was important for us to get a good understanding of the environment within which we will be running the program. And there were 5 key areas or points that we focused on. Firstly, we wanted to get a good understanding of the methodology and approach that is typically followed for S/4HANA implementations. And what we learned was that SAP has a prescribed methodology called Activate, which is an agile approach to implementation, and that they typically use a model company approach consisting of predefined processes, templates, and accelerators to speed up the implementation by following what is called a fit gap approach. Secondly, we also had numerous engagements with several other companies as well as external advisors to understand some of the lessons that they've learned embarking on similar transformations. It was also important for us to really get a good understanding of the culture of the organization, and we spent quite a bit of time on this, understanding the current ways of working. What we learned was that there were diverse processes across the operating divisions, but a very collaborative approach to decision making, and also very little, if any, exposure to agile. This was all important points for us to understand, as the defined approach and processes for the program would need to take all of this into consideration to be successful. Also, in context of Pioneer's history and the changes in operating model that Marlene referred to, we realized the importance of defining and confirming the operating model. Despite the fact that the implementation partner would bring a proposed delivery approach, we would need to ensure that this is included as a critical first step in the roadmap. We also realized that the operating model confirmation would set the boundaries within which we will be designing the future. And then lastly, we also had several engagements with SAP to obtain their input and expertise on the approach, scope, as well as roadmap. Now, by having all these engagements with the different parties and gathering the information, we got a very good understanding of the program and organizational context. And this enabled us to put together 8 key success enablers for the program. It was very important for us to give our executives an understanding of what it would take to make this project a success. Now on the screen you will notice a summary view of these 8 points, and I'm quickly going to run through them. Point number 1, we have to ensure that we have the right program organization structure in place. That is, selecting a highly skilled implementation partner that has done this before, as well as the right capabilities and skills internally from both businesses as well as IT perspective. Secondly, We have to ensure that we've got a compelling and shared vision that will give business a clear indication of what the future state would look like, so as to ensure that there's alignment at all levels within the organization. Also, a well-defined blueprint, that is a logical view of how the organization would look like once we get there, as well as what the implication of the changes would be. An effective change and transition plan. We had to make an effort to understand what the change appetite is of the business, what the change impact would be of these changes, and then derive a fit-for-purpose change strategy to ensure a successful transformation. Point number 5, we need to make sure that we place benefits at the heart of the program, have clear pathways between outcomes and benefits, and ensure that we've got regular reviews planned while actively monitoring actual realization. Integrated planning and control, realistic and achievable plans was high up on the agenda, with clear, well-thought-through probability analysis of time and cost to ensure that there's open-mindedness around potential scenarios and outcomes, should things go wrong. Another very important point, number 7, embedded quality and risk management, making sure that we have the quality and acceptance criteria defined, planning regular quality reviews, ensuring that there's key understanding of the principal risks, and open discussions around potential mitigation as well as scenarios should these risks realize. And last but not least, point number 8, we would need to ensure that we have a very clear IT transition strategy and plan in place, understanding and defining what would be required from a skills and capability perspective, clearly defining the reporting roles and responsibilities, and ensuring project and post-go-live support and processes are in place.
So the third point the TPMO did right was to secure senior leadership support for the program. Securing leadership support on an executive and senior management level was a top priority for us. We knew that we would need this early on in the process to ensure that we get the right resources on the program, help us to influence and engage with key stakeholders, and to create an environment where we can openly discuss issues and risks. The CEO and CFO were assigned as sponsors to the program, CEO as executive sponsor and our CFO as program sponsor. The steering committee was mobilized with basically the entire executive committee forming its members. We spent the first steering committee meeting ensuring that they had a clear understanding of their role on the program. For most of the members, it was the first time that they were involved in such a large transformation program. We also used the opportunity during the first steering committee to educate them and get their support on the program success enablers that Dalian mentioned.
Let's move on to the next point that our program stakeholders raised as a key thing the TPMO did right. We sourced the right mix of resources with the right capabilities. You will recall that one of the key success enablers that we presented was having the right program organization structure in place. Now, how did we go about designing this program organization structure? There were some key design principles that we applied, which we've summarized on this slide, which also came out of the various discussions with other organizations that have done this before. First point was to ensure that we retain overall accountability for the program, and as such, the entire team reported into the program director of Pioneer Foods. We also knew that the future design would be big and complex, and it was therefore key for us to ensure that we have some key and appropriate roles in place to enable the integration of the various design components. And this included roles such as an enterprise architect, business architect, information architect, technology architect, to name a few. It was also important for us to ensure that we have the required oversight and control over the quality of delivery, as well as absolute clarity on decision making. Then thirdly, the allocation of internal resources to support the transformation program is typically one of the biggest challenges that organizations face. Now, we made an effort to clearly define the business and IT roles required, obviously taking into consideration what our implementation partner would bring, as well as other third-party suppliers that would be involved. We also looked at the program approach and the fact that there would be the much required knowledge transfer from the implementation partner resources to the Pioneer Foods resources. And with the executive support in place, we were able to actually handpick these IT and business SMEs required, and they were full-time seconded to the program. And then also in considering the implementation partner, as with any other organization, it's important to note that they also have weaknesses. We made an effort to understand our partners' key strengths, but also their weaknesses, and made sure that we augmented it with third parties with the necessary skills and expertise, and this was especially important for change management. Lastly, we also made sure that the TPMO roles are aligned to the overall program requirements. The next slide provides a summary view of all the functions and services we believe the TPMO needs to provide to the program to make it a success. Now, without going into too much detail around these functions and services, I'm just going to highlight the key roles that we had to put in place to ensure that we have a high-performing structure. The role of the PMO specialist was to ensure that we have the required standards, methods, and processes implemented, as well as the required tools to enable and support the delivery teams. The role of the planning and reporting manager was just as critical to ensure that we define the required planning standards, provide estimating supports to our leads, and develop an integrated program plan that clearly highlights the interdependencies and critical path. The role of the program accountant was to provide the required financial control, implementing and administering the financial processes, and ensuring that our actual spend in the program is within budget. Also to ensure that benefits management is at the heart of everything that we do and that key decisions take this into consideration. Then the role of the PMO analyst was to provide the required oversight and control, managing our risk issue and change request control processes, as well as supporting the various governing bodies.
And then point number 5, focus on building an alliance. It was important for us to create an environment where everyone felt part of the same team. There are too many programs failing because of the us and them mentality. We've established a common vision. We've created a brand, Program Sky, our digital future, and it was visible everywhere you went. Developed a robust onboarding process that included various training interventions on tools, the new solution, leading practices, program governance, and standards. Clarifying expectations from both sides at the start, created a team site with key information on facility, company background, ways of working, as well as information on surrounding areas and activities to make our partners feel at home. Defined roles and responsibilities for each role, provided clarity on responsibilities for the 2-in-the-box roles.
Point number 6 of the top 10 things the TPMO did right. It provided structure and clarity on decision making. And this is probably the point that I'm the most passionate about. As most of you guys have probably experienced it yourself, one of the biggest culprits on programs is ambiguity over who is accountable for what. Now, in the slide in front of you, we've included 3 cartoons to just illustrate the point, and I'm sure you'll all be able to relate to it. Did you make the changes I asked for? That depends. Do you remember what you asked me to change? No? Yup, then I made the changes. Now, for us working in transformation programs, every delayed action and decision can cause missed deadlines and cost a lot of money. We knew in starting the program that the future design would require a host of business and technical design decisions. and that if we didn't obtain clarity and agreement upfront on the appropriate level of decision making, it would result in wheel spinning, decisions made at the wrong level, which would then require rework later, and ultimately significant delays. So we proactively thought through the key decisions that would be required with the appropriate decision-making authorities to ensure individuals as well as governing bodies were empowered and have the required autonomy to fulfill their roles effectively, giving us a good head start when the implementation partner is onboarded. That is, we could hit the ground running with some of the key decisions that would be required. We divided this into 4 key levels of decision making in a design management framework. At the top was the group operating model decisions that would be required to inform the business capability decisions and how it would interact and interface with each other. This would then inform some macro business and technical decisions, which will set the boundaries for our program blueprint design and ultimately enable detailed design decisions at an operational level through the work of design owners and design working groups. After obtaining approval of the design management framework, we translated this further into a detailed decision rights matrix. One of the key things in obtaining organizational context that we learned was that Pioneer Foods had a very specific way in which decisions were made within the organization. We sourced what they refer to as the levels of authorities framework, which then informed the approval process, and it was clear that in order to make a final decision, there would need to be pre-approvers at the right level to make a pre-decision. So the slide in front of you just gives an illustration of some of the key decisions and the pre-approvers and final approvers that were agreed for those key decisions. It was also important for us to also illustrate who all the parties would need to be that would need to be informed of the final outcome of the decisions. On the next slide, it also illustrates the detailed deliverable register. So this was also taking it to another level to make sure that even at a deliverable level, we had clearly defined quality criteria as well as the working groups that would need to be involved in the finalization and approval of these deliverables, and then the final signing authority. This gave the team absolute clarity on the path that they would need to follow to final approval, which obviously made their planning and estimating much easier. And then lastly, we also illustrated very clearly what the various escalation levels would be should any issues, risks, or decisions need to be escalated to a higher level for intervention or action. Moving on to point number 7, the TPMO ensured that resources were well equipped to get on with things. In setting up the program office, we realized that the program would require a diverse set of tools to make it successful. In our approach, we took a holistic view of not only the program delivery functions that we would need to fulfill, but also the solution design functions. And this included various processes such as issue management, dependency management, the ability to maintain a deliverable register, apply financial control, quality control, as well as solution architecture design. So for each of these functions, we went through a process of carefully designing the processes, the standards and techniques, but then also took it a step further to make sure that we have an appropriately integrated suite of suitable tools to enable a collaborative, automated, but also highly effective environment. Let's look at point number 8 now. The TPMO established a proactive attitude towards risk management. As you guys all know, transformation programs hold huge risk. It was important for us to define and implement a more proactive approach to risk management. So of course we implemented the traditional risk management approach of identifying the risks, assessing the risks, reviewing, planning, and monitoring those risks on a frequent basis. But there were 3 key additional things that we added to the process. As a first point, it was important for us to identify and agree early warning indicators for all our sensitive risks. This would then give us proactive indication whether risks were in fact starting to realize. Secondly, we discussed and agreed risk scenario response plans with our senior executives so as to ensure that we have an appropriate action plan ready for implementation should the risk realize. And then lastly, we identified critical decision points within our project plans so as to ensure that we can make the decisions in time to trigger a response plan in order to minimize the impact on the program.
So point number 9, secured active engagement of the business. A holistic view of our stakeholders' expectations included my own expectation. Go slow to go fast, and not go fast to go slow. So very important that we start right. Also, if you look at our executive sponsor, which is our CEO, help us reimagine pioneer. And we really embraced the following 3 words: stronger, better, faster. Then also our program sponsor, he wanted excellent project management, want quick decision making, realistic time frames, excellent communication and standardization. Our suppliers, make us feel part of the team, trust us on the journey, help us understand your business. Because transformation impacts people so personally, we made a conscious decision to get the business support from the start. We used various approaches to this, including a formal launch event where both our sponsors presented and visibly indicated their support for the program and made their expectations clear. We put a lot of effort into understanding who the influencers and resistors are, as well as the informal networks within the organization. We assigned relationship managers to key stakeholders who then had regular one-on-one sessions with them. Most importantly, we involved business representatives not only in the design of the future solution, but also analyzing the impact of the change and what that will mean for our business. We also created various sites aimed at specific stakeholder groups. For example, Sky Team site for the program team, where they could find anything from information on the company, the way we work, and just to collaborate amongst one another. The Sky Business site to keep business up to date with the progress. And a Sky collaboration site to create a platform for design working groups and decision owners to collaborate, ask questions, and understand requirements. And the last thing the TPMO did right. Number 10, implement a solid quality assurance framework. The main objective was to provide the program steering committee and relevant corporate governance bodies, the EXCO, risk and audit committees to name some, with confirmation that the program is on track and remains aligned to the program's overall objectives. The approach ensured full coverage of the 3 critical components, namely the program delivery, how well are we executing? Solution quality, will the delivered output ultimately achieve the desired outcomes? And change readiness, thus the business have the capacity and capability to absorb the changes. So we introduced 3 levels of assurance. The first level was mainly the responsibility of the program management team, the TPMO, the change team, quality manager, and chief architect. That was a day-to-day quality management exercise. The second level's key activities included quality reviews and also internal audits. And level 3, for me, the most important level of assurance. The activities included assurance reviews, stage gate reviews, solution design, quality checks and deep dives, risk assurance and change readiness assurance. And it was also important for me to have this done independently, and for that reason we used our external auditors.
So in summary, these are the top 10 things the TPMO did right based on the feedback from the various program stakeholders. We hope you found this insightful and that you'd be taking some of these things on your next transformation journey. Some of the key takeouts that we'd like to leave with you based on our experience. Setting up the TPMO is not a plug and play. It's not a one-size-fits-all, so make sure you understand the program context as well as the organization within which you are implementing or executing the program. Your organization is accountable for the TPMO, not the implementation partner. Also ensure that your TPMO is up and running by the time the program kicks off. Make an effort to understand the skills and capabilities that you require within the PMO and then source the best people. Actively monitor your performance and take action. Make the hard decisions early on to change and rectify. Thank you very much for joining our session today. You will notice our contact details on the slide. Should you have any further questions or comments, please feel free to contact either Marlene or myself.